Okay, so let's do part two of what is religion with the PowerPoint. I am actually going to go back to, where's the PowerPoint here? To the language of the sacred, because I made it slightly bigger, just so you have some idea of what's on this PowerPoint slide. Okay, so many religions have a sacred language. Sometimes even the studying of the sacred language or even saying certain things are sacred in and of itself within the religion, especially with Islam, especially with Judaism, where the text really is the core of expressing the sacred. There are many different types of stories, like myths. Myths are usually stories that explain how things happen. So what they're what are called what is the word for it? But anyway, when things like creation, like how did the world begin? How does the world end? How did humanity begin? How did evil enter the world? Things like that. How did language evolve? Those are usually stories that you would involve myths in terms of explaining why these things happen, things that we just don't know. The Bible itself is full of myths that some people take for fact, where we have to actually take a step back and realize are scientifically impossible. Things like Adam and Eve or the flood, right? Those are really just myths that try to explain why things happened. What's the function of stories? They're designed to pass on information, insight, lessons, etc. Maybe as role models so that you know what to do or maybe what not to do. And then also, they're vehicles for revelation, meaning this really happened, this miracle happened, this healing happened, this person rose from the dead, this person achieved nirvana. Those are also incentives for revelation. Parables is actually a unique type of story that Jesus was kind of brilliant to use. And those are stories that are fictional, but are designed to have the audience realize a moral or ethical point. Something as simple as be a good person would be the ethical point of, let's say, the parable of the Good Samaritan. All right. So frequently Jesus would use this device, and he was actually pretty brilliant in his use of it, where the audience, while they're listening to the story, are forced to realize something to themselves, some sort of moral or ethical point. There are different types of sacred language, as I mentioned, oral and scriptural. And so basically, in summary, sacred stories are a means of connecting the sacred dimension of existence through religious stories that order the cosmos or explain why things happen. Stories give shape to the memory of a community, ways to remember things that happened, things that you can inspire. And then stories, of course, serve an ethical function. Okay. And then, of course, you have stories in different types of things, like you can tell a story through cave art, or you can tell story through, in Hinduism, the two different gods, Shiva and Vishnu, have Adiyars and Alvars, who are sacred singers in the temple. They can also sing of the exploits. So you might be able to do it in different genres or different modes. But in general, telling a story encompasses these points right here. All right, so I think we went over ritual. I think we went over sacred communities. Right. Okay, so we went over the rituals. Why do you need rituals? What types of rituals? And then I'm going to go over sacred communities. Okay, so sacred communities are basically the individual amongst other individuals that form a community within a certain religion, okay? Because religion is inherently social. There is an inherent social character of religion. You can't really practice a religion by yourself, right? You can do things by yourself in a religion, but in general, religions only occur when more than one person believes in it, right? So, there are different types of groups in society. There are churches, there are sects, and some churches actually begin as social groups called cults. So, for example, Christianity began as a cult. a cult around a particular figure in first century Roman society, where this cult around the figure of Jesus Christ was actually something in danger of being eradicated, both by the Roman authorities, who did not like this person who seemed to be kind of, causing people to riot or condemn the government or, overarching authorities, and also the Jews, who didn't like that some of the Jews were calling him the Messiah, which would be blasphemy against, worshiping other gods outside of their own Jewish God. Many cults and sects eventually became mainstream churches like Christianity. And then certain religious communities can then break apart when they start to have diversity within the community. So, for example, in Christianity, there was a lot of schisms and divisions within them in early Christianity, and they actually had to write a bunch of creeds, like the Nicene Creed, in order to institutionalize their religion. Even with that, Christianity is now made up of 3 different branches: Protestants, Eastern Orthodox, and Roman Catholic. So even with institutionalization, you still have schisms and divisions. All right, the problem of evil. Now that we have all the parts of religion, we have to think about how religion answers problems within the human existence, meaning, what is life? What's the meaning of death? The right way to live, etc. Right? So one of the kind of the prominent questions that come up, and what we kind of demand religion to deal with, is what is evil? What is evil? And now in certain religions, we, like Christianity, we like the dualism of labeling evil onto something else, right? If Jesus is good, then evil must be something else. So many Christians, even though this was never articulated in the Bible, both in the Old and the New, many Christians like to label the other, or evil, as Satan, right? The work of Satan. Jesus never mentioned that. So I think what evil is basically the inconsistency between what is and what it should be, right? And I think the best description of what evil is a falling away of the good. I don't think anyone is necessarily in charge of evil, because then you're empowering the lack of goodness. You're giving it a lot of power. Do you know what I mean? So religion, I think, is inherently good. And when you fall away from it, when you stop being good, that's when evil comes in. When you are weak, right? When you are not faithful. I think that's kind of what evil is. So I put an example of the Holocaust. That's when humanity really failed, right? We didn't step in, and we allowed someone who was desperately insecure and desperately childlike to take over and kill 6 million Jews, right? So there's a link. What are responses to evil? What is a response to the falling away of good? Well, karma. Karma is something that if something bad happens, it's going to come back to you, right? And then the flip side, if you were a good person, that'll also come back to you. So that notion of karma is what goes around comes around. In the Buddhist context, evil is located within yourself. So if you're completely consumed with materialistic things and secular things and objects and everything that has to do with you, the ego, that's evil. Because really, the goal of Buddhism is to detach from the id, or detach from the ego. Muslim context, there's a notion called Mahdi, which is the rightly guided one. You need to maintain that path of goodness in order to guarantee the afterlife. To go and respond to evil is a falling away. You won't get to the 7th heaven, if you then give up on being good. So there are different ways of responding to evil, but I do think there is no figure, there's no person who's in charge of evil. There's no person that is in control of you and making you do these things. You take responsibility for the falling away of the good. You're the one that is acting evil by just not acting good. So I think that's kind of the explanation, let's see, religion and morality. How do humans know what is good and right? This is also part of religion. Do we do good things because they're inherently good, or do we do good things because God makes us and declares it to be good? So it's kind of like, are you self-aware? Are you self-confident? Do you identify what is good, or are you just following rules? There are many people who fall in this other category, and I just wish that they weren't, people have this amazing brain that was created, we have this amazing tool that at our muscle, that we need to exercise, and some people choose to stop short of that. So what is the answer? Do we do good things to benefit human welfare? Yes, then that means they're good, right? Just do things that help other people, not help yourself, unless it helps you become a better person, but do things that help other people. So you can be moral and ethical and not have to be religious. So you can add different layers, like, is it morally good? Does it help people? Yes, it's moral. Is it ethical? How can you apply those morals to live a good life? And then when is it religious or when is it non-religious? So it is religious when the justification for being moral and ethical and helping other people and being a good person is teleological, meaning there's a reward or punishment for conduct. So that's when the religion says you have to do it, it's teleological, meaning you're doing it because the religion says it's good. It's not religious when the justification for being moral and ethical is deontological. And this is actually from the philosopher Immanuel Kant. He was deontological too, where you're just good and moral and ethical because it's inherently right to be that. Now, sometimes you can be deontological. You just do good things because you know it's right. And you can be teleological as well, meaning you're doing good things because you know it's right. And coincidentally, it happens to be the same things that God tells you to do. See what I mean? So you're not only following rules, but you're also inherently doing things that are right. And it just so happens that they're in line with whatever religion you have. So it's kind of great. Some examples of that we'll cover are the Hindu caste system, the Muslim rules of war, and the use of Christian prayer. So we're going to go over that when we go over those religions, okay? And then the final thing is quest for salvation. We always have some reward down at the end of the line, right? There are 4 types of salvation, and try to remove the Christian notion of salvation from your mind at this point. There's the individual salvation in this world, meaning what can you get out of this religion right here in this world? Things like having a family and continuing traditions that have gone on for many generations in your family that are good and beneficial. That could be individual salvation in this world, right? You're doing great things in a religious way within, by continuing it on your own. The other one is individual salvation in another world, meaning that's a very kind of Hindu Buddhist idea, like the notion of achieving Atman Brahman or the achieving nirvana, something that you can only do on an individual level. Group salvation in this world would mean something like a covenant. We are God's people in Judaism. You are in a covenantal relationship with God, so everything that you do in this world in terms of practicing the religion is in relationship with God. So that's a very active way of being in a group salvation mode in this world, which would be Judaism. And then, of course, group salvation in another world, this would be something like the Day of Judgment or the Apocalypse. The idea that many of us, are going to fall on one side or the other as a group when that time comes when God will judge us, So that would be kind of a group salvation in another world. So anyway, I just wanted to cover all the kind of tangential, like key points of what religion is, and then we'll see how those are addressed. All of these concepts and ideas are addressed as we go over each particular world religion. All right? So I will see you for Hinduism coming on up.